Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. All right, don't get too fruity with me. And welcome. I'm buzzing to do this. So who watches the Piers Morgan show every morning? Good morning, Brexit. Oh, GMB, Good Morning Britain, because you can listen to Piers Morgan. It's his show and the ratings are great because of him. So should we see Piers in action? Let's.
Had lost and Remain had won. And the Brexiteers said, we're not accepting the result of that referendum and we're demanding another one. Could you, in all good conscience, say you'd be sitting here saying they have an absolute right to have a second referendum before anything else happens?
No, I mean,
you wouldn't have done that.
No, I wouldn't. But
no, Piers, because, and let me tell you, this is quite serious, mate, because what Brexit does is basically saying, jump out the aeroplane without the parachute and fuck everyone, because everyone voted for it. But guess what, Piers? Guess what? If this was a general election, it would have been a hung parliament. You keep on saying this is what the British people want, but actually, the Irish don't want it, the Scottish don't want it. That's everyone, is it? That's the problem, Piers. Carry on, mate. Carry on digging that hole.
Then I do think...
Do you accept that the Brexiteers go, well, exactly. So, all these people crying for a second referendum, actually, if it had been reversed, would have been the ones saying, absolutely not.
Right, here's the difference. We are, having done Brexit, we're changing our whole situation. I don't think it's unreasonable when you then get to what that practically means. So, let's be clear, we all know a lot more about this now. You and I would know more about this now than I did 3 years ago.
Right.
Once you get to that point, I don't think it's unreasonable to say, let's go back and check whether people want to think.
Well, here's a parallel. Let me throw a parallel to you. So when we vote in a general election, every 4.5, 5 years, whatever, outside of exceptional circumstance, we vote, but we vote on manifestos, often which turn out to be a load of baloney. The stuff, the broken promises, broken pledges, etc. People, also big claiming as tuition fees and so on. But what we don't do is say, well, actually, we didn't fully grasp the complexity of this manifesto. And
because, Piers, Brexit changes everything. It will make people homeless, mate. But you're rich, mate. You don't give a hoot, do you, Piers? And that's the thing. Brexit doesn't affect you. But apparently, Piers, you're a Remainer. Beard.
So we're not going to accept the result of the general election.
We do after 5 years.
No. What we do is this. We allow the result to stand and the government to govern. And if we don't like it, come the next election, we vote them out. And my point about Brexit is surely we owe it to the British people who voted in gargantuan numbers on this. We owe it to them to enact Brexit and see if it works. Because my worry would be if we don't do that, and we do slip in some second referendum, and it goes the other way, there will be hell to pay in this country. 17.4 million people will be, millions and millions. We don't know how many would vote second time around. Many might take the view, why should I bother? But many people will be enraged.
Why should I bother? In the most important votes the UK has seen in their history, my friend. Because at the end of the day, we all know, Piers, that Cameron only put this referendum out there so people would vote him in and get him in by a majority, mate. And you know that. Let's talk about ITV and Piers Morgan. ITV are a bourgeois company, right-wing. They've had Nigel Farage on this show many, many times, apparently because we've got to hear all voices, even the voice of someone who leads a brand new political party who's not an MP. But you see, Piers was a disgraced editor of a newspaper. But his mate Simon Cowell, also a Tory, gave him a big opportunity on ITV. Now he's sitting there, lording it over the rest of us.
And so this problem wouldn't go away. It wouldn't be resolved by a second referendum. They would just demand another one.
But I think the analogy is that if when the government, you elect a government and then it transpires they're not doing things you really like, you can put them out at the next election.
But you allow them to govern first. You allow them to prove that they can make what they promise work. At the moment, I'm not seeing a situation that allows Brexiteers to drive the truck.
Yeah, mate. Let's allow Brexiteers to run the country. That'd be good, won't it? Let's see how shit this will get first. And if it's shit, We'll do something about it afterwards. When everyone's hungry and starving, right, and the UK becomes a third world country. Great idea, Piers. Let's listen to Piers.
And try and prove this works.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the will of Parliament going against the will of the people.
Right, but I think this is why...
The will of the people. I repeat, it is not the will of the Irish people. It is not the will of the Scottish people. And even the Welsh, yes, the Welsh, have changed their minds. We know what would happen if there's another referendum, and he knows. Now, this is a Remainer. No, he claims he voted Remain. What has he done now? Changed his mind. This is a guy who's mates with Nigel Farage, one of the biggest fascists. This is a man mates with Donald Trump, who sticks women and children in cages because they're in his country illegally. Not being violent, working, putting money in the system, but still, this is the kind of man who's talking about morals and democracy.
I say to you, I think you've got to come to a choice. I think your point is completely valid in circumstances, as is the problem with Theresa May's deal, where you're not sure what the future holds. But if you come to a view in Parliament, supposing Parliament decides for a hard Brexit, then, okay, you've got a hard Brexit. Then, by the way, the negotiation is reasonably straightforward.
Do you think Jeremy Corbyn wants to be in Europe or out of Europe?
I'm probably not the best person to ask.
But you know the answer. And isn't the fact that none of us know the answer to that question rather telling? Is that we've had 2.5...
We know Corbyn. We know Corbyn's a socialist, Piers. You're deflecting the argument to something else so you can run away from talking about the central point. Because Blair has just made you look like a Wally on your own show. And it is your own show. Let's be honest about it, Piers. We all know that. It's your show. You can do and say what you want. But the point is you've been made to look like a Wally. So now you're talking about Corbyn. We know Corbyn's a twat. We know Corbyn's a socialist. We know he hates big, powerful organisations. We know he wants Brexit. We know that. We know that Labour need a new leader. But at the end of the day, the central point is that Brexit is shit. But you want, and you know it's shit, Piers, but still you want to give it a chance.
Of years, and the leader of the Labour Party still, even on Sunday in an interview, could not articulate or answer that simple question.
Look, I think he's probably traditionally a Brexiteer from the left.
Right.
I mean, you get this. Some people from the right want out of Europe because it's a socialist conspiracy, and some people from the left want out of Europe because it's a capitalist conspiracy. But I mean, look, the reasons, by the way, I think you and I have discussed this before. The reasons why this is important to my view. I think one of the unfortunate things about the whole debate is that we focus on the economics, which are very important for sure, because that's all about jobs and investment and so on. But the big reasons that we should be debating are about Britain's place in a world that's going to be dominated not just by America but by China. And I think the thing that I think is missing from all this is you need some order in the structure of the debate so you come to a clear decision in Parliament. But you also need to raise people's sights and say, in the middle of this century, where are we going to be as Britain, as a country of this size, in the 21st century, where you're going to have 2, possibly 3 giants in the world, and where everything depends on what those giants do. And the reason for Europe is basically medium-sized countries like Britain, France, Germany, and others. Unless we're together, we haven't the weight to get our influence in the world.
To be fair, that argument was lost in the referendum.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That argument was lost in the referendum. Now, let's talk about Susanna. I forgot her last name, but anyway. Susanna is there to be the foil, to be the one, the voice of reason normally. She votes Labour. Apparently, she votes Labour. She said that last week. But anyway, the argument was lost. Susanna, I'll repeat, if this was a general election, it would have been a hung Parliament. And you want to base the future of the UK on that? Look, nobody's lost the argument. Nobody's lost the argument. The only people who have lost the argument are you people. Because every fucking morning, Susanna and Piers, you're on that show talking about renegotiations when the EU have already said they refuse to negotiate another deal, right? But still, let's carry on.
And what they wanted was for the UK to be stronger, to take back control.
The UK to be stronger. Take back control of what? You're a little pissing island. You can't do anything. You can't live without any support. And if you go with America, you'll become little America, which you already are, right? So you want to leave the EU. Even Thatcher, even evil Thatcher supported the EU, but not these idiots.
Our laws, our money, and our borders. That's how we operate in a well, we do independent trade deals with all of these people.
I understand.
And we're not part of an undemocratic conspiracy, whether you're from the right or left, an organisation which doesn't seem to necessarily be working in our individual interests.
That's absolutely right, but I get...
Your individual interests, that organisation protects you, you thicko, you dumbass. That organisation protects you from your own government, because if there is no EU, the British government can do whatever they want. And that's what you people don't understand.
That's what I'm saying is, the question is, in a decision of this magnitude, do you just take a one-off decision and that's it? Or do you take account of what has happened since then in order to think whether you think...
I think the correct thing to do is you exact what the public voted for, and you go through with Brexit and you see if it works. And if it doesn't work, we always have the ability down the road to reverse it, don't we? We can do that.
Yeah,
it might be difficult. Of course, none of this is easy.
Wow. Piers Morgan has got it all figured out. Let's do Brexit, see if it works, and if it doesn't, when the country's a barren wasteland, we can see what we can do, because everybody will be hungry and dead by then, Piers, but not Piers Morgan, because he's going to be they're all going to be tax exiles. They're going to be creaming, while all you ordinary working class people and most of you who were thick enough to vote for Brexit, right, actually are going to be hurt by this thing. It's stupid. You should never have been given the choice, because you're too thick to understand, right? We are a world. We're not countries. We're a world. We should be united. But no. Let's move away. Let's build a wall. Let's block people out. It's pathetic. And Piers Morgan is a big problem. But you know what the problem with Morgan is? Morgan is a guy who doesn't actually believe in anything. He will say anything to get a reaction. And this is what's ludicrous about this whole thing. They've got him, right-wing, ITV have got him sitting there, right, saying a load of crap. He's on Twitter constantly saying stuff he doesn't believe in just to get a reaction.
We know that already. But actually, if we don't enact the referendum result, I think there will be hell to pay in this country, and this will then become the dominant thing which divides us for potentially generations.
Okay, so that is a very strong argument, I accept. But there is an alternative argument, which is that once people actually see what it means in practice, and we force people to decide what type of Brexit you want, you see what it means in practice, I think it's not unreasonable to say to people, okay, we've got a far clearer idea of what the real choices are, have a final say, right? You're not going back and asking another people, you're asking the British people.
And David Cameron, who was in your shoes as a British Prime Minister when this happened, the week before the referendum, it's all on video, you can Google him, he said this is a once-in-a-lifetime vote, there won't be a second vote, and this means we leave the European Union, we leave the single market. He spelled it out, and people were under this idea that people didn't know what they were voting for. I remember very clearly, we debated this every day on this show.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I remember it being pretty clear. And so I think a lot of the 17.4 million think, do these people think we're just stupid?
They've been insulted.
They think they...
Yes, they are stupid. Anyone who voted Brexit is stupid. Do you remember when the referendum result came in and we saw pictures of those idiots in bars celebrating? What were they celebrating? They didn't get Brexit. They didn't know the consequences, you know. We all know why. They voted Brexit. Get all those foreigners out. Yeah, mate, yeah, keep it British. What? So you can have 20 tea breaks, right? Those people you want to boot out, those legal people, foreign people who are in your country are keeping you going. They're the ones paying their taxes. They're the ones not taking any breaks at the end of the day. But at the end, let's just blame the foreigners, right? Yeah. And that's the problem. This is why people voted for it. It's the truth. It's the truth.
It's a bit like the debate with Trump in America. It's like middle Americans go, we knew what we were voting for. We knew what we were getting with Trump. And by the way, we preferred him to you liberal smartasses.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But the difference is with President Trump, you'll have the opportunity in 2020 to re-elect him.
Right, but what you didn't do with Trump was once he won, say we're not accepting it, and actually we're just not going to have it. Which is the analogy I've used.
Yeah, but my analogy is, now that you see all the different changes, look, how many people really predicted it would be this messy and this difficult?
No, but I come back again that if it was the other way around and Brexiteers were trying to overturn the referendum, absolutely everybody on your side screaming for second referendums and so on would be saying.
And you know how your argument gets shot down, Piers? Because not as many people would want a revote. The point being, my dumb friend, and this is the point, but you know all this, Piers, anyway, right? You know all this, right? Basically, there's no consequences to not having Brexit. There's no consequences, right? Because we're part of the EU, we are protected, right? And if the UK leaves the EU, as I say, it's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute, and that's the point. And in terms of Donald Trump, people have been trying to turn over that vote as soon as that vote happened. All right?
Complete opposite.
Yeah, but by the way, they would be still arguing that. But it's different when you're actually changing the way the country is going to work. So, when it's not unreasonable to say to people, look, now we see what it means in trade terms, in investment terms, in economic terms. Parliament comes to a decision, the British people have the final say. But leave that aside for the moment, because I accept, by the way, there's not a majority in Parliament for another referendum at the moment. The key question at the moment is how do you bring some order and structure back into
Let me throw you another point. So I remember when I was editor of the Mirror, and you and your team were very determined that the Mirror get behind Britain entering the euro. And I was assured by all of you that if we didn't, it would be a complete disaster financially for this country. And I'm hearing exactly the same rhetoric now about crashing out with no deal and so on.
Wow, Piers. Isn't it nice of you to remind us of when you were editor of the Mirror? Because that went really well, didn't it? Right? I don't really have an opinion on a single currency, Piers. But at the end of the day, your point's a moot point. A single currency is one thing. Leaving the EU, which protects every member of the United Kingdom, which is a fact, is crazy. It's insane. And the only people who want it are the people who don't like other nationalities and other countries. And we know that. And maybe you're one of them, Piers.
It will be a disaster. To which I say, well, okay, but everyone was wrong about the euro. It turned out to be the best thing we never did. Could it be that all the brains saying this will be a disaster, that actually if we did crash out, and we had...
Hang on, right? I live in Cyprus, right? There was a financial international crisis, right? So we're part of the EU, right? So Cyprus was hit a little bit, not much, not like Greece. It wasn't disastrous. So we borrowed some money from the Germans, from the EU, right? And guess what? Already paid it back and thriving, right? If we wasn't part of the EU or the single currency, this country would have been fucked. So, Piers, you're talking bollocks again, mate.
Had to come together. We had to make it work. We could maybe sitting here in 5 years' time, a bit like with the euro decision, and it may have worked. And that Brexit might actually be a good thing for this country. Can you say with certainty, given what happened with the euro, that you may not be wrong?
Yeah, but the thing with the euro is the political reasons for joining were very clear. The economic reasons weren't, and that's why in the end we never put it before people.
But you weren't wrong in your assessment.
No, I always said about the euro that there were political reasons for joining, but economically we had to be aligned with Europe, and we weren't.
But my point is, could you be? I mean,
many was. Can I say with certain?
But I would say that you're wrong. Let me ask a specific question. Okay. Many would say, Tony Blair, you were wrong about the euro, right? You were wrong about Iraq. How do you know you what? And many people would say that. How do you know you're not wrong about this? And how do you know with certainty that Brexit may not work?
I don't. No one can know with certainty. The question is, you've got to look at the probabilities and the evidence before you.
Oh, Tony, you've got old, mate. Where's that figure, mate? Where's that figure? Stick it to him, man. Listen, mate. Just say to him, listen, mate. You're talking shit, Piers. Simon Cowell's your mate. Donald Trump's your mate. You're rich, mate. This won't affect you. It's a gamble. Will Brexit be a bad thing? Of course it will. Of course it will, because each UK citizen will have to rely on the British government, and they'll have no EU to protect them. All those little rules, all those little workers' rules you've got, everything, that's the EU protecting you. So come on, Tony. Where's that old Tony? Stick it to him.
Because no deal's different from hard Brexit, by the way. I mean, hard Brexit is a deal. It's just a hard Brexit deal. No deal you immediately go out of your trading arrangements that cover 60% of your trade, I think you've got to say there's going to be a problem. Now, how big the problem is another matter. But by the way, I've never said that you can't do Brexit and sort yourself out eventually. Yeah. What I say, and this is my criticism of the hard Brexiteers, is you've got to be frank with people that if you come out of the trading arrangements you've been in for 4.5 decades, you're bound to cause economic pain. Now, how much and over what period of time is another matter.
Before we let you go, just pivot to what happened in New Zealand, appalling attack by what appears to be a right-wing white supremacist. We've seen a lot of attacks.
Right, we don't need to watch that. So basically, what Blair's saying is right. Brexit, you have to adjust to 4 decades of being with the EU. It is dangerous, right? But really, I didn't do this video. To talk about Brexit. I did this video to talk about him, Piers Morgan, who sits there protected in a little bubble behind studio lights, and he says whatever he wants. He's talking about democracy, what's right, what's wrong. Well, I tell you what, Piers, we know what's wrong with you. We know what you've done in the past. You're not a particularly very moral individual, but all of a sudden, you and ITV have decided to be the Morris Centre of Brexit. Everybody voted for it, but everybody didn't vote for it. It was a bloody close vote at the end of the day. But every day, we've got to listen. Every day, they talk about Brexit. Every day, they say the same things. And that's why I call it Good Morning Brexit. Piers Morgan is one of those individuals that he's a bit like a YouTuber, not me, but he's a bit like a YouTuber. He will say whatever, just to get a reaction, and he loves it. And he's so thick-skinned and he's so protected, he can get away with it. Don't fall for the blarney. Another YouTuber I was watching, and I won't name his name, said that Piers Morgan is talented. The day Piers Morgan is talented is the day I zip up my rear end.